Hello and welcome to the Trendzone Football Dudes Extranomical Fantasy Show. He's Dave, I'm Casey, and it is time to talk a little fantasy.
Casey, can you live this fantasy life?
It's not reality, it's just a fantasy. Oh, yeah, baby, it's winding down, but don't get lazy. Still tons of work to do. And the easiest thing you can do, subscribe to the Trendzone Football Dudes Extranomical Fantasy Show. That subscription will also get you dialed in for the Trendzone, where each and every week of the NFL season we hit all the top trending stories, as well as give you previews of every single game, not just some, all of the games. So make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of that sweet, sweet football dudes goodness.
That's the Trendzone podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Dave, let's hit it up. Survivor 3 Strikes pool. As the people might remember, I took the prize home last week, so we are officially out of this. But how did the rest of the people do out there?
Well, I'll remind the people that I did tie for second as well. So
the dude's in the money, baby. That's sweet.
Most popular correct pick last week was the Rams over Washington, with more than 33% of the people cashing in on that one. Unfortunately, for the people who picked Atlanta, that was the most popular incorrect pick for Atlanta to beat Carolina, and they threw that game away late and allowed Carolina to steal that one from you and probably stole away a lot of people's money.
Oh, yeah, Des Ridder, man, a very terrible decision down there in the red zone. Points right there to take, and you just give the ball away, and maybe their season. We'll get into that on the Trend Zone tomorrow. But for now, the most popular picks heading into next week are the Eagles over the Giants at almost 30%. Oh, it would be terrible if 30% of the country lost out next week.
Now, will it be Tommy DeVito again, Casey?
Hey, Tommy Cullins, baby. He's going to do it. All right. All right, Dave, I know this one is still a little tender, but it is time for our go back fantasy starts of the week. If you could go back in time and replace someone that you started in your fantasy playoff game and replace them, would you?
Casey, I could have won this game so easily. Of course, I refresh the people's memories that Casey and I were going head to head in the playoffs, and I made multiple mistakes. And I could have started Goff instead of Dak. That would have given me 35.06 more points. I could have started Godwin instead of OBJ. That would have given me 14 more points, and I could have started Jerome Ford instead of Bijan Robinson. That would have gotten me 3.7 more points. That cost me a total of 52.76 points, and I lost by 3.4 points. And if I would have switched out any of those dudes, any single one of them, I would have won the game. But I just can't get over it, folks. I can't get over
it. It's weird, dude. You have such a good GM there. Maybe it's time to move on from the coach. We gave you all those groceries. You just got to learn how to cook with them.
Yeah, that's one of the tough things about fantasy. If you draft well, you got a lot of depth to your roster, and you're sitting in there every week with too many decisions to make. And obviously, not that I overthought it, but I made the wrong decisions clearly.
Yeah, Dave. Well, I had some bad decisions too. If I would have started Kenneth Walker III instead of Zeke, that would have netted me 12.5 points, and I would have only gotten beat by 40.26 points had you played Goff. So could have made it a little more respectable there.
I'm still upset about this, Casey. I don't know. I almost canceled the show here today.
Yeah.
Just
dissolve the company.
I show up here for work. Take care of business.
That's right. We got a job to do, Dave. Well, that's I guess that's it for salt in the wound. Now that it's time for total fantasy domination.
One more salty section coming up. Thank you.
Give me a quarterback.
Yes, the total fantasy domination section starts off with Jared Goff, my bench quarterback. He passed for 278 and 5. Count them, 5 touchdown passes. Nice game, Goff.
That's only 5 touchdowns. Is that a lot?
That's 5 more than Dak scored.
Yeah. Yeah, brutes. And Christian McCaffrey for those Los Burros Locos. Unfortunately for the Locos, they were on a bye, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. Christian McCaffrey went off 115 rush yards, a rush touchdown, 72 receiving yards, and
Woo.
2 receiving touchdowns.
MVP, anyone? How
Mm-hmm.
about the wide receiver, Jordan Addison, dude, for Bolt Action, my brother's team? I think they were on a bye, actually, as
Yeah.
well. And 111 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns for Jordan Addison. Nice game.
And helping to make that cookie crumble were the Greenbud Packers, led by Sam Laporta, baby, 56 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. The Greenbud Packers smoked the Cookie Monsters, and they are moving on to conference championship weekend.
Wait, real quick, back to our game, Casey. What the hell, handing the ball off to your receiver at the 4-yard line? Why not throw the freaking ball back to the receiver?
I picked up the Jera hotline and I said, Papa Jera, I need CeeDee Lamb touchdown.
Anyone else on the team scores that touchdown, I'm good. And how about marking scary Terry McLaurin 6 inches shy of the goal line?
Inside the 1.
Oh, my God. I can't believe. Okay, I'm over it now officially. That was kind of cleansing.
Yeah, good.
I appreciate that little cathartic therapeutic session there. Let's
And
go ahead and move on, Casey.
Okay. Breathe, deep breaths.
Okay, we'll be all right.
All right. Dave's going to zen out while I run through the details of our league that is run through NFL.com. 12 teams, non-PPR, no flex, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 6 points for a touchdown by the quarterback, as it should be. Only 5 bench spots, which is totally brutal during the season. It's so hard to hold on to everybody, especially with bye weeks and injuries. But that's what makes it so sweet, is that talent is re-released into the free agent waiver wire pool, and it helps you make some moves late. But Dave, our waiver type is awesome, set up by you. So commish, give the people a taste.
Yes, it is moved to last after claim never reset. So after a successful waiver claim, your team is moved to the lowest waiver priority for the next week. However, if you decide not to take a player on waivers that week, then your position goes up, up, up. And you might decide to take a free agent, a high priority free agent, instead of a waiver wire guy, and save that waiver position like I did for weeks and weeks. And then finally spend that position on a guy like OBJ, who catches 1 catch for 14 yards. But I digress.
He did have that big 30-yard drop too.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That would have been even more tantalizing.
That would have been like a 0.2 or whatever it would have been at the end.
Shy, right?
Brutal. All right, Dave, let's hook the people up. If you were still in the playoffs and you had some injuries or need to get a little mojo going, we're going to give you guys a little bit of hope here. Let's start with quarterback, Dave. Who you got?
Yeah, how about Baker Mayfield, dude? He's going up against the Jags this week, and he is still out there in a lot of leagues. Unbelievably, after last week's performance, I don't think he's going to last through this week, man. Through 381 and 4 touchdowns last week, a perfect passer rating of 158.3. I mean, he is a gamer, folks, and he's got those guys clicking.
Dude, Baker's had 75 head coaches, 130 different offensive coordinators. He just needs some continuity in a system. Hopefully they've played well enough to keep Todd Bowles, the coach, there, to keep those guys going, and Baker can have the same.
Yeah, they're right in the mix, man. So, right there. They just keep it up. They're heading towards the playoffs. So,
yeah, with Rachaad White starting to heat up and Baker doing his thing, that could be a very exciting team. So, good for Bake, man. Stoked to see him. And we talked about this guy too, Jake Browning. You should have never effing cut me. I don't know if you saw that on the Twitters. No. Throws down the helmet. Totally awesome. I don't know who had cut him, but they are sad now because there's not been a more productive free agent over the last month of the fantasy season. 324 yards and 2 TDs last week. And over that last month, 1,180 yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing TDs. He brought those Houday zombies back to life, and they are right in the mix with the game against Pittsburgh this weekend.
Look out, baby. He's going to light it up.
Yeah. It's got
all those
really
weapons.
Good matchup.
He's found his rhythm, man. It's exciting.
Yeah. All right, Dave. What about running back?
Speaking of, how about Chase Brown, dude? He's even with Mixon, playing there and productively. Chase Brown has been very productive, especially out of the backfield there. He's going against Pittsburgh, as we just mentioned, for this Bengals squad. And that Pittsburgh team has been very forgiving and generous defensively. Over the last 2 weeks, 48 rush yards, but 108 receiving yards for Chase Brown and a receiving touchdown. So he's a different back than Mixon. So he's going to get his touches, and they found sort of a spot for him in that offense. And he's been, obviously finding that comfort zone there. So I expect that to continue, that role to continue to grow a little bit. Also, maybe Tyler Algier versus Indianapolis might get a bump in production with the desperate Falcons. They switched over to Taylor Heineke after Desmond Ritter's just absolute, boneheaded mistake last week. And Bijan Robinson was an absolute no-show last week. He had a negative score. So maybe it's time for this Falcons team to go back to the steady and productive Algier.
Yeah, if it was me, I would have had Robinson on the bench last week. I just don't like his production, but that's just me. I'm a gambler out there.
Yeah.
You know what, dude? You have to see what's going on with this guy. But if Zach Moss can't go for the Colts at the ATL, look for Trey Sermon. This guy's kind of bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
And we thought he would have a home with San Francisco. He didn't, obviously, with Christian McCaffrey there. But 88 rush yards in relief last week, and it was the way that he was running. Very physical.
Yeah,
looks healthy.
ferociously.
Kind of came into the league banged up. So if Moss is out, he's going to get his chance there. So I know he's been really chomping at the bit to get there. So maybe it's finally there for him. Also, if Brian Robinson can't go, or even if he can go for the Commanders or the Dirds, look at Antonio Gibson, dude. This guy's been very involved with the pass game out of the backfield, and especially in relief for Robinson going against that very porous New York Jets run defense. So there might be some opportunity there for the Durs.
Yeah, no doubt. The Jets, great pass defense, and that invites you to run on that, like you said, wide open, porous run defense. So it's a good situation. It really makes teams want to run and run and run,
All right, Dave, what about wide receiver?
All right, there's no one hotter, Casey, over the last month. So hot right now, indeed, than the Rams, DeMarcus Robinson. They'll be going against the Saints, which is a pretty good defense, generally speaking. But DeMarcus Robinson, 181 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns over the last month there. So also, how about Parker Washington of the Jags? They're going against Tampa. And his last 3 games, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So no Kirk, maybe no Zay Jones with that hammy. He's going to be day to day moving ahead. But Parker Washington has, flashed here and there. He's made had a couple of key drops, as I recall. But he's getting his targets, and he is making some plays.
And dude, Robinson, man, just to get a piece of that Rams offense, the way they are cooking right now, man,
unbelievable.
Everybody wants to buy in on that. And, I don't know if I would gamble on this pick unless I had to, but if you need to pick up somebody going into conference championship weekend, what about Quentin Johnston against the Buffalo Bills? The last 2 weeks, 173 yards and a touchdown. He's got some chemistry with Easton Stick, as we kind of saw as the Chargers got it going in the second half against those Raiders. I think that they could do more of that. And, the Bolts are probably going to have to throw a lot against those Bills. Also, speaking of those Raiders, Trey Tucker starting to cut into Hunter Renfro's reps. 2 touchdowns last week against the Chargers. And if you're feeling super kinky and you want to gamble it all going into the second round of these playoffs, look at Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants against those Philadelphia Eagles. They can be thrown on, and Wan'Dale's really starting to come up. And any reason to sizzle the Eagles, I am here for it. All right, Dave, let's go ahead and take a look at the toy ends because they're toy.
And I gave this guy a super long look last week. Almost pulled the trigger. Wish I did, because I had Taysom Hill. He got me basically nothing. But how about Hunter Henry? He was a little banged up in last week's game, but lately he has really been destroying it. 106 yards and 3 TDs in his last 3 games. Caught 7 of 9 targets and a touchdown last week. But if he can't go, I think he's going to go there,
Yeah.
and I think he's definitely the go-to guy for Happy Zappy. But if he can't go, maybe Mike Gesicki or Pharaoh Brown might get those touches. So some other guys to look at as alternatives there.
Yeah, Hunter Henry has really been playing well lately. And this guy who knows nothing is back from injury. I'm talking about Dalton Schultz against the Cleveland Browns. Little tricky there against that defense. Like I said, he's back from injury. But last week, 4 or 5 targets for 58 yards. Really got involved in the second half of that game playing against the Titans. Seemed like he was getting up to speed. And also Tucker Kraft, we told you about this guy too. He had 4 grabs on 6 targets, 57 yards, and a touchdown last week. So the Packers are going to need to work some mojo too. So both of those teams, Texans and Packers, fighting for playoff spots. So they need to be active on the offensive side of the football. Okay, Dave, let's go ahead and look at kickers. JK, come on, man. You know us. Come on. Hey,
there's a little Tony Danza
for the people. Hey, come on. All right, what about defense, Dave?
Yeah, how about this one, Casey? Bengals defense and Lou Anarumo's got those guys playing pretty good ball. But last week, of course, versus Vikings, 3 sacks and 2 interceptions. So those are some good numbers there. But also playing at Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's offense. If you've listened to the Trendzone, regular Trendzone show where we preview all the games, which comes out on Wednesday evenings, I've been saying it all year. This Pittsburgh offense is not very good. And it's an opportunity for the Bengals to put together a pretty nice defensive performance.
Yeah, could they be the Grinches that stole Christmas with Rudolph getting the start for the Steelers?
Ooh, yeah, it looks like that's the direction we're headed. So we'll see about that. But nobody else is playing good quarterback for those guys. So
bah humbug.
Yeah.
You know what I'm looking at, Dave, even though they got smoked by those Lions last Saturday, is the Broncos versus the New England Patriots. It's going to be at Mile High.
Ooh.
They like to play at home. So look for them to bounce back against the Patriots. On the season for these Broncos, 24 turnovers and 36 sacks on the season. We know that the Patriots are offensively challenged.
Yes.
Expect those challenges to continue this weekend against a good Broncos defense.
Yeah, or look out. Sean Payton will get really upset at you.
Yeah, he was uncalled for, dude. Okay, was melting down. We'll get into a little bit of that on the Trendzone tomorrow. Speaking of Trendzone, make sure you subscribe to the Trendzone. Each and every week of the NFL season, we talk top trending stories and preview all of the games in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the Trendzone podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're out there dominating fantasy league, go ahead and bookmark footballdudes.com. It's all there for you at footballdudes.com.
All right, for Dave, I'm Casey. Thanks for listening to the Trendzone Football Dudes Extranomical Fantasy Show. We're not the suits that talk football. We are the dudes that know football. And may your reality and fantasy meld into one Extranomical football weekend. We'll see you next time.